You're listening to the Courageous Pivot podcast. This is a space where transformation begins and possibilities unfold from the heart. Whether you're standing at a crossroads or seeking clarity on when to trust your deepest instincts and take that life-changing leap, you're in exactly the right place. Get ready to unlock the courage, wisdom, and passion to turn challenge into opportunity. Your journey starts now. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of The Courageous Pivot. I'm your host, Meghan Telpner, and if you're listening to this as the new year unfolds, I want to say welcome. Welcome to this moment. Welcome to this year. Welcome to whatever it is that's calling you forward right now. Open up to it, let it in, let go of those fears. And I also want to ask before we get started that you ensure you are subscribed over at courageouspivot.com. The ideas are brewing for my inner circle, and it seems as though what I thought was a short-term little project, well, it's not, and this is just the beginning of who knows what. Today we're diving into something that I think is both personal but also profoundly relevant to the greater collective and to the theme that keeps emerging from the conversations I'm having, both here on the show and also in my life, because what happens on the show is an extension of the curiosities I have and who I speak to and, as things come up. So as I shared in my final email of the year to my subscribers, what I thought the show was about was change. People making big and small leaps in alignment with their heart. That's what I thought I was doing. But it turns out that that's really just the symptom, the result of what is actually happening inside. And what that is in fact a profound remembering, a recognition or recognition, remembering what we have always known. And this is a common theme within the awakening process. I suspect much of what I share here will touch you at that cellular knowing level, touching what is already within you that helps explain some of what I know many of you have been feeling and wrestling with over the last several years. Today, I'm talking about the awakening process, what it means and how to navigate it without everything in your life falling apart, or at least not all at once. So allow me to start by acknowledging something important. There's a reason why so many people feel drawn to transformation at the start of a new year. It's not just marketing or resolution culture, though there's plenty of that. I've often felt greater renewal in the spring and again in September. However, there is obviously energetic influence starting a new calendar year. Humans have always honored and acknowledged liminal spaces, the threshold moments. It's the natural pauses where we are invited to choose. Do I carry everything forward from last year, or is this the moment I finally let something go? Do I keep living the same patterns, or is this the time that I wake up to a new way, whether it be in some small or maybe some grand shift? I know you know this, but we are also living through a great awakening, or should I say a greater awakening. Just as there's a rise of information, access to information, a rise in technology and integration of this technology into our everyday lives, there is also a grand rise in awareness, in consciousness, and in connection. And this connection is what is so critical here. I don't want this to feel abstract or theoretical. My objective in this episode is to make this very real and tangible for you, even within the somewhat uncomfortable way that this shift is touching every single one of us. This is a ready or not, here it comes sort of situation. So what I mean by a great awakening is basically that the veil is getting thinner. This is the veil between what we've been told is true and what we're actually experiencing is true. It's the veil between the systems we were raised to trust and the reality of how those systems actually operate. This is the veil between who we thought we had to be and who we actually are. Most of you, like me, were born in the 1900s, the late 1900s, but still, we're 25 years into a new century. And while many of us are reverting to analog ways of living, the times we live in are calling us to advance our understanding of the world in dramatic ways. I was at a party recently and we were talking about some technology my husband had seen someone using on the ski hill, and the woman we were chatting with declared, "Wow, what a time to be alive." And I thought, that's a really good saying, a way to kind of sidestep the doom and gloom or to celebrate what is truly remarkable. But really, what a time it is to be alive. Here's the thing about veils thinning. It means more and more people are seeing their way to the truth, whether they or we like it or not, whether we ask for it or not, whether we feel ready for it or not. And as I said, you and I may very well be included here. Is it the royal we? The challenge, and perhaps the scary part, is that awakening often causes the very foundations we've come to trust to crumble. And I don't mean that metaphorically. I mean the actual structures, systems, and beliefs that have held up our sense of safety, identity, and belonging begin to shake, crack, and sometimes completely fall apart. To move ahead, for true internal progress, they often need to. This means we start asking bigger and bigger questions. Questions that we maybe were taught not to ask. Questions that, should we be brave enough to allow the answers to come, can feel kind of destabilizing. We may be asking, why are we living where we're living? Is there somewhere more aligned for us to be? We may ask how our governments actually operate and who in fact they are serving, if not us. How broken does our sick care system truly have to become before the alternate paradigms can be widely embraced? What happens to our banking and economic systems when the very way in which they were built becomes as obsolete as Blockbuster video? We can go even deeper than that, and trust me, I do, usually at 3 a.m. when the whispers land in my heart so loud that I cannot silence them. We may start to question how our families operate and where those patterns come from. What was passed down through generations that we never questioned before? What beliefs we inherited about money, about success, about what it means to be a good person, a worthy person, a valuable person? We start to ask how we can rewrite the script, manifest our lives down a different path than the one that seemed carved out before us. This awakening is inviting people, maybe forcing people, to break out of these systems, to free ourselves from what we call the matrix, to find ways to do what feels both protective and freeing for ourselves and our families. This is about creating the freedom and courage to live in alignment with your actual values, not the values you were told to have by the state-sponsored media and mind-numbing and manipulative streaming services and social media. This, I believe at least, is why so many people right now are finding their way to spiritual practices. Some are returning to religious traditions in a more conscious way, not the rote, go through the motions version they may have grown up with, but something deeper, something chosen, something that feels more meaningful to them. Others are exploring entirely new practices: meditation, breath work, energy work, indigenous wisdom, dance, music, chanting, plant medicine, human design, astrology, handcrafts, and art, not as entertainment, but as tools for navigation, ways back to themselves, to their heart, to what is real and what is true. What I'm seeing is this: when everything external becomes unstable, we have no choice but to turn inward. And that's exactly where the answers have always been. This is how we can save ourselves from being swallowed by the chaotic pace of what is out there. And if you're feeling this pull, like something needs to fundamentally shift, it can feel like anxiety, worry, fear, even depression. Those emotions might all be present. And know that this isn't weakness. You're not just being dramatic. That's your soul saying it's time. This is you tuning in. You're waking up to what isn't working and daring to venture into what may. It's walking into the unknown. And it's essential that you do. This awakening process is a form of salvation, or maybe revelation is a better word. It's essential because what we're witnessing is a massive loss of purpose, especially, and this breaks my heart, but especially amongst young people. Children are trading their play-based childhood for worlds in their screens. Teens, 20 and early 30s, anyone who grew up fully in the digital age. They are not bearing witness to a loving, challenging, purpose-driven life. Let me share some statistics with you that are heartbreaking and sadly, though, not that surprising. According to research from the Walton Family Foundation, 42% of Gen Zers, that's people roughly between the ages of 12 and 27, struggle with depression and feelings of hopelessness. That's nearly double the rate of people over the age of 25, which sits at 23%. I don't want to just brush over this. That's close to a quarter of people over the age of 25 feeling anxious, depressed, etc., etc. Another study found that 61% of Gen Z has been medically diagnosed with anxiety. 61%. A 2023 Gallup survey found that almost 47% of Gen Zers aged 12 to 27 report that they often or always feel anxious, and more than 1 in 25 often or always feels depressed. What is that? That is something epidemically not working. Though there is limited research, I do believe similar numbers apply to seniors. While we once thought this technology was a great gift to help older people stay connected, there is no connection in a device. It's not simply handing your time and critical thinking over to an algorithm. It's also about all that is not being done and experienced in real life when lost on these things. A 2023 report by the Making Caring Common project at the Harvard Graduate School of Education found that 58% of young adults had experienced little to no purpose or meaning in their lives in the previous month. Think about that for a moment. An entire generation coming of age feeling purposeless, anxious, and depressed at rates we've never seen before. So if you're hearing this and thinking, maybe this is the year I finally address what's not working. Yes, 1,000 times yes. Yes to your yes. As my friend Justine Ramdas says, not only is this for you, but collectively we can become the living permission slip. Inspire others by thriving. This is something you get to do. We are taking a brief little pause here because I want to share with you a course I created just for you and just for the courageous pivot process. It is called Rise and Shine, a guided approach to heart-led living and leadership. In this course, I go through a very simple strategy, practical tool to help you learn how to tune into your heart, but not just tune into your heart, how to learn to trust the guidance that you receive. This is about understanding the local intuition, the recognition, remembering what it is you already know, and being able to continually build on the evidence to trust the guidepost that is within each and every one of us. I want you to head over to courageouspivot.com. You can scroll down there and you'll find a link to the course Rise and Shine along with a 30% discount. The course is built to take you about 4 weeks to go through. There's 5, 10, and 15-minute meditations included with it. There are beautifully designed slides to go with the presentation material. There's audio-only options for the course. You can listen while you're folding laundry or going for a walk in the park or painting a picture or crocheting a sweater or baking cookies. For me, maybe even. Who knows? I've received cookies in the mail before. Rise and Shine is a wonderful bridge to bring you into this work in a way that is really, really accessible and profoundly powerful and effective. Head over to courageouspivot.com, scroll down, you'll see the link to Rise and Shine. There's a little trailer video that tells you all about it. Register and get instant access and get started today. Your life is waiting, and let me tell you, what is on the other side of the path of the heart is love and joy and freedom like you've never experienced before. The awakening process is, in many ways, the antidote to what has become the social media disease. People are losing their direct access to their heart's intelligence and instead finding identities through impersonating social media trends. And I think this is happening unknowingly. This can look like everything from what seems like a harmless dance routine to entirely changing your face, filling it with chemicals to plump and bump and anti-age yourself into some algorithmic ideal of beauty that doesn't even exist in real life. That is not a source of purpose or meaning. It's doing things, wearing things, being with people for validation when you get an award for it or being able to post about it. It's performative living. We are literally seeking validation for what we choose to wear to a family dinner. People are spending hours, literally hours, curating a life for the internet while their actual life, their real life, goes unlived. Identity has become performative rather than developed through being present in lived experience. We are being numbed while consuming other people's performative life experiences instead of living our own. And I will say, I've been doing this art, a certain kind of art, since September, 4 months. It felt like a first trimester. I've shared nothing about it. Entirely private, entirely for me, for the process, for my heart, for the soul, for slowing down, for finding purpose in doing something that was only for myself. And in that, there's a resonance that I haven't experienced in years and years and years and years and years. There's power in that. And maybe it feels self-indulgent, but to live in a resonance, a frequency of permission, of aliveness, of awakeness, of creative expression, that is a gift to the world. Even if no one sees what I'm actually making, and maybe one day they will, but to go out in the world with that energy and that vibration in every engagement is something. My son used a term recently that perfectly captures what I'm seeing. He was describing some crackers he tried. It was something he didn't hate, but didn't fully like either. He declared them at the low end of good. Like he'd eat them if he had to, but it wouldn't be his preference if he had a choice. And my friends, that's what we're seeing. People are living in the low end of good. Not quite miserable enough to change, not suffering enough to justify the upheaval that transformation would require. But they're not thriving either. They're just existing, managing, getting by, surviving in beige, the low end of good at best. It's blah in there. The human spirit was not designed for the low end of good. We were designed for aliveness, for purpose, for meaning, for connection, real connection, not the digital simulation of life. It can be a snapping out or a slow transition to awake. But either way, once you wake up, you cannot go back to sleep. So what happens when you wake up? Sometimes it's a crisis. Sometimes it's a diagnosis or a loss or a betrayal so profound that it shatters your sense of reality. It shatters your ability to believe in everything you thought was true or real or held you up before. Sometimes it's an awakening that comes through pain. But sometimes, and this is what I want to normalize, sometimes it's just a revelation, a revealing. I love the way spiritual teacher Michael Beckwith explains it, and I recommend checking some podcasts with him. For me, at least, his teachings, even his voice, are like a salve to my nervous system. One day I'll tell you the story of the flash mob Josh and I participated in with him in LA. Let's just say it was my idea, not Josh's. I loved it. I don't know if Josh did. But anyway, Beckwith clarifies that a revelation isn't about learning something new, but about remembering what it is you already know, what your soul already knows. It's an unveiling of a truth that was already present but unavailable to your conscious mind due to fear, distraction, ego, or simply conditioning, the patterns or beliefs you grew up with. Revelations, the gentle process of awakening, happen when you are in an aligned state, in coherence, tuned in, whatever you want to call it. That's why some people get what they might call a download in the shower, or maybe on the weekend when you step away from the things that keep you so busy or chaotic. It's when you're in a place of openness where you can receive it, right? You're like exquisitely mindful, or to the next place, mindless, but aware and still and calm and present. And this isn't something you can chase or demand. It's more of an act of surrender. And we often hear people having those moments of critical pain. UJ described it when he was in a life-threatening accident in episode 10. But a moment that is so intense where you kind of throw your hands up and say, okay, I give up. What do you want from me now? Sometimes it's a moment where you see something you cannot unknow, unsee, or undo. Often the first experiences are more dramatic, so obvious that you can't ignore it. Ultimately, once the veil is peeled back, you cannot unsee what you've come to know. The reality of the awakening process is that you just keep knowing more and more. Again, as I said before, whether you want it or not. And trust me, I often don't want it, at least not consciously. As time goes on, the more aware of this process and the experience of it that you are, the more you find yourself tapping into what some people might call the greater field of consciousness. This is a greater awareness of knowledge and of wisdom. Dare I say it, but you become the field, inseparable from the collective mind that we are all part of. Yes, I'm about to get into the quantum here for a moment, but the reality is that the further along this process you go, the more you're able to come into stillness, the more you just start to know things. That precognition, that sense of, I think I've been here before. It's intuition operating a level beyond logic. You start to note synchronicities, things that seem like coincidence happening outside any reasonable probability measure. It's like that can't just be coincidence. Ideas pop into your mind, questions, and then the answers seem to present themselves without effort. As we learn how to down-regulate the nervous system, you begin to attune with the vibrations and frequencies of planet Earth, this little rock we're spinning through space on. You start to feel the subtle energies that you were told didn't exist because they weren't measurable by conventional science. And maybe, just maybe, this is the year when you stop ignoring what it is you already know. You stop pretending that you don't see it. You stop waiting for permission from someone else. You just learn to trust your own inner knowing. Here's something interesting for you. What I find, let's say, curious is that during what I would lovingly call the Schmovid years, using the hashtag Great Awakening on social media platforms resulted in censorship. Your posts would be shadow banned, flagged, or removed. I know from experience. We were told these posts were pushing conspiracy theories, and yet the huge majority of the main ones all turned out to be true. We're seeing it now with AI, the promises and the perils. AI is, in many ways, a display of general human consciousness. And as such, we'll see it used for good, very good, and for evil, based on the level of consciousness that we can collectively display and hold as the human race. Keeping us asleep keeps the archaic systems of control alive. With the lure of ease, convenience, and, in quotes, our own safety, we're being lulled into staying comfortable and compliant. Ask too many or the wrong questions and you are labeled as part of an undesirable group. It's not conspiracy, not at all. What it is conditioning. But you can't keep billions of people asleep forever. The alarm clock is going off. It's loud. And once you're awake, you are awake. So what does this process actually feel like? It's peaceful. It's bliss. It's dancing through the days under the sun with a gentle morning breeze. Just kidding. It's not. If only it were. If it were easy, there wouldn't be so much inner turmoil and resistance. To be blunt, at first it can feel like you're losing your mind, not gaining hold of it. Like you're the only one who can see what's happening. You start noticing things that seem blatantly obvious to you that other people around you don't seem to notice or don't want to talk about. You start questioning things that everyone else seems to accept as normal. When I spoke to Kristen Nagel for the podcast, a former NICU nurse who stood up for what she believed was right and lost her 14-year nursing career because of it, she described how leaving her job meant releasing not just a career, but an entire belief system, an entire way of seeing herself and the world. The awakening for her wasn't just about healthcare corruption. It was about recognizing that everything she'd been taught about authority, about expertise, and about who to trust needed to be completely reassessed. That's terrifying. That's destabilizing, and it's also necessary. So no, it's not a walk in the park or a dance in the field of flowers, at least not at the beginning. The awakening process can feel really lonely. You're seeing things differently now, and not everyone in your life is going to be on the same page or the same timeline, as it were. Some people will never wake up, and this is a hard one. Some will wake up, pretend they're still asleep because they think it's easier. Everyone is on their own path, and that is something we need to accept and release control of, including children, parents, and partners. When I had Angela Delagua on the show, she shared how she kept getting laid off from jobs she didn't even want. The universe was practically shoving her toward change, and yet her attachment to the familiar kept her stuck. It wasn't until she finally listened to the whispers before they became screams that she was able to make the moves for a new way of living. And of course, there's a grief that comes with this. I've spoken about the grief of letting go of who you once were in a past episode. You grieve the person you thought you were, and you grieve the life you thought you were building. You grieve the beliefs you held that felt so true and now don't. You grieve the relationships that don't survive your shift. This one has been one of the hardest for me, the thing I still carry around. And also, there's a grief for the version of the world you thought existed. It was a simpler one. There's a comfort in believing you're being taken care of when you realize this isn't the case, or that you're not being taken care of in the way you thought. It takes shifting. It takes time to understand that the awakening you are having is actually the truest form of care. You are being shown the way forward that is right for you as you become exactly who you are now. Even when you're awakening to something more true, more aligned, and more free, there's still loss. What I want you to know as this year begins is that grief is okay. It's simply part of the growth process. And the big question, how do you integrate new wisdom into your life without completely blowing it up? When I talked to Dr. Kwadwo Kyeremintang on the show, an ICU doctor who stayed in the system but completely transformed how he operated within it, he talked about what he described as the ultimate cheat code, that living in alignment doesn't always mean leaving. Sometimes it means staying and bringing your truth with you. He didn't leave medicine, he transformed how he practiced medicine. He started speaking up about prevention instead of just treatment. He started creating innovative healthcare solutions. He stayed in his field, but started operating from a completely different consciousness. That's integration without detonation. Here are some other ways to integrate awakening into your life without imploding everything in it. For one, you can start with your nervous system. You cannot make clear decisions from a dysregulated nervous system. If you're in fight or flight or the end stage, freeze mode, everything looks like a threat. Everything feels urgent. Practice regulation first. Breathwork, meditation, walking in nature, slow art, dancing, whatever brings you back to center. Try and be there as much as you can. Do one thing at a time. It's another tip. You don't have to question everything all at once, even if it feels like you've been hit by a tidal wave of awareness. Pick one area of your life that feels most misaligned and start there. Maybe it's your work. Maybe it's a relationship. Maybe it's where you're living. Maybe it's your own mindset. Focus on that one thing and give yourself permission to explore it without pressure to have all the answers right away or to make any grand, immediate decisions. Maybe this year you just focus on one courageous pivot, not 12, not a complete life overhaul, just one thing that would bring you back into alignment with who you're becoming. As UJ advised in episode 10, do something every day that brings you joy. The third tip is to find your people. This is so important and can also be really challenging. Awakening alone is brutal. Find the people who are also waking up. Find the podcasts, the books, the communities, the teachers who are speaking your new language. You need witnesses. You need mirrors. You need people who can say, I see it too. You're not crazy. The number of people who still come up to me with gratitude in their hearts over my willingness to share what I was seeing over the last 6 years is no doubt the greatest blessing from that challenging time. It was not easy. Let me be clear. Speaking up and speaking out against the conventional beliefs, the paradigms, and the narrative was one of the hardest things I've ever done, and my nervous system is still recovering. So to say this is easy would not be the truth. The fourth tip is to trust the timing. Just because you see it doesn't mean you have to act on it immediately. Sometimes awakening to a truth means you sit with it for a while. You let it integrate, you let it inform you without letting it be the source of chaos. Just give yourself time. And finally, honor what was. Even as you move toward what's next, honor what got you here. The old version of you wasn't wrong. The old goals or beliefs weren't wrong. They have played their part in landing you here today. Here's what I know about New Year's. They don't magically change anything. Midnight on December 31st didn't erase your patterns or solve your problems or wake you up to what you've been refusing to see. But New Year's and any reset period you choose does offer something valuable. It's an easier way to permission if you feel like you're waiting on that. It's permission to rethink, refeel, and to choose differently. We're in powerful times. I'll say it again. What a time to be alive. The structures that no longer serve are continuing to crumble, and they were never going to go down softly, quietly, or peacefully. Which means this year could be the year you finally trust what you've been seeing. The year you stop living in the low end of good and start reaching for true aliveness, wide awakeness, joy, vitality, courage. Let this be the year you build something new from a foundation of truth instead of programming, from who you are and who you're becoming, not who you thought you were supposed to be. You are supported. You just have to take the first step. You have to be willing to wake up and stay awake, even when, especially when going back to sleep might seem easier. Know that awakening is ongoing. It's layers upon layers upon layers. Every time you think you've got it figured out, another veil lifts and you see even more clearly. And it can feel exhausting. You can lose people in the process. Or people you thought were awake, you realize kind of stopped too soon. And it can also feel like the greatest adventure of your life. That has been my experience. And I continue to choose the adventure. This awakening process is not optional once it hits you. What we're being called to now is nothing short of remembering who we actually are beneath all the conditioning, the shoulds, and the supposed tos. We collectively have the invitation to rewrite the script of how this unfolds, how we want our lives to unfold. You're waking up for a reason, and you are not alone in this process. And I want to ask you to keep trusting what you know to be true. If there was something that resonated for you in this episode, I want to ask you to please share it with a friend. Sharing on social media is fine, but if you can actually send a DM, a text message, an iMessage, a voice note, an email to 3 friends who you believe will gain peace, calm, and hope from this episode, share it. Share it with someone who's also feeling that awakening happening in their life. Because the more we can share this experience, the more that we continue to be the permission slip for others, the easier the process can be. This is real and this is happening. We are waking up. I want to thank you so much for being here. Thank you for doing this brave, necessary work of becoming more conscious, more awake, more alive to who you are today. You existing in your full truth is the greatest gift you can offer to our world, to humanity, to those you share your life with right now. Here's to all of us waking up together. I'll see you again next week. Thanks for being here and enjoy the rest of your day.